Hello. Welcome to the 411 on 911 live podcast. Before we get started, please let me know how the sound is before we start yapping. I scared Bailey.
He's doing his part.
Yeah. So let me know how it sounds. Too loud, too soft, just right before we get into it. And also, for those of you that are already on here, I do not have a moderator this time. So y'all have to help me out. Like if people start asking a bunch of questions and like feel free to answer and just let them know that
You're missing something important.
No, just that we're just going to talk like a pre-recorded video basically. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll look at comments, but y'all I know Jessica's in here. I talked to Jessica quite a bit. So, Jessica, feel free to fill people in. All right. They say it sounds good. So that's good.
Yeah.
Can't see Bailey though, but he's here.
Cracker.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I had a mild little panic right before we went live because my computer started glitching and I had to reboot everything. And I was so busy doing that I kind of forgot what I was going to start with. But my mind went blank. This is why live stressed me out. I wanted you guys to hear some of the funny stories that Lee has that involve shenanigans around the station. And most of these are from the fire department, but there's one really good one that's not from the fire department. But when we were talking about doing this, I was trying to think of some stories that I could tell. And I can't think of any. Like, we never... I mean, there was a few little things here and there, but nothing like what y'all did. So my stories aren't near as funny as yours. But
so which one did you want first?
I want to see what you were going to come up with first.
Well, the best EMS story I have, and I don't know if this person will ever see this video, and if they do,
you talk about me.
Again, God is my witness. I did not know this was a problem. And I think you know me well enough now to know that I'm serious. But a really, really good friend of mine was taking a shower one night at EMS, getting ready for bed. And that particular station, for whatever reason, the bathroom doors had a 2-inch gap between the door and the floor. And another really good friend of mine and I had an idea. Hey, let's scare him. Again, God is my witness. I never knew he had...
You can say his name. It's not a HIPAA violation.
I never knew that he had any kind of a firearm incident in his life. So we let him get in the shower, and he's 4 or 5 minutes into it, and we lit, and I thumped an M60 under the door.
A firecracker.
If anybody doesn't know what an M60 is, it's about the size of my thumb. It's about a 1/8 stick of dynamite. And at EMS, we had crystal clear shower curtains that we were supposed to keep clean, and we did. He was taking his shower, minding his own business, and he said he heard something that sounded like a sizzle, but he wasn't quite sure what it was. And he turned to look at it, and that very wet, clear shower curtain was between him and the door, which is like 8 feet away. And when that M60 went off, the entire curtain lit up, and he said he really thought he was dead. Once again, I did not know that man had a firearm incident before in his life. Needless to say, when he came out of that bathroom wet and naked and mad, all I could do was lay on the floor. And that man could have beat me to death, and I couldn't done anything about it because all I could do was laugh. When I found out the rest of the story later on, I felt really bad because we truly scared the soul out of him.
So Mitch earlier in life went hunting, and he was shot with, was it birdshot or buckshot?
I think it's birdshot. I don't remember.
Anyways, he was shot in a hunting accident, and Lee didn't know. And then he flicked that firecracker under the door.
I never heard that story in my life.
And so, yeah. I always love that story.
That man could have beat me to death, and I couldn't do anything about it. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even raise my arms to protect myself. Oh, it was bad. He was double barrel mad.
I'm sure he deserved it for something.
I don't know if anybody deserved that. But those very same two guys, I was going to class one time and came back to the station, and they're laying in the floor laughing just before dark. And I was, what's wrong? And all they would do was point. Please don't give us a hard time. This is not funny. It took us a long time to correct this, but we did. But
oh God, now I'm scared.
They kept pointing at the window, so finally I look out the window.
Canceled.
There was a squirrel up on top of the hill, and one of them had blow darted it, a big blowgun. And I look out and I see the squirrel, and I thought, what's the big deal? And I look at them, and they're dying. And I look back out at the squirrel again and look down to get something else off the ground, and that dart stuck up. And that's not the funny part, because that's terrible. But what was funny was the three of us chasing that thing around to get that dart back so that it didn't keep that. So, yeah, that was bad.
Did y'all get it back?
Yes, we did.
How did you catch a squirrel?
We actually didn't. We got close enough to swat at it one time and knock it out. That's all. But yeah, you should have seen three grown idiots chasing a squirrel around the backyard. That was an adventure.
You know, this, I just thought of something. This isn't a prank. Excuse me. I was burping. This isn't a prank, but I always love this story. I think I talked about it before. Maybe it was a members only live. I don't remember, but the story of you and Missy backing up in the station with Greenie.
I hope no one recognizes this story, but yeah, that was actually quite hilarious. And this
Hey, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Don't touch your microphone stand.
This was not a shenanigan. This was
Thank you, Stacey.
an oversight. My partner and I went to a call. This lady was found in the bed, deceased. She'd been gone for a while. And back then, we didn't have a coroner van. So anything the coroner had, we had to transport it, whether we ran the call or not. So we go out, and she's deceased, and we call the coroner out, and he does his thing and all, and we load her up, headed back to the station. Prior to that, my partner and I had gone to the grocery store. We bought a loaf of bread, pack of ham, pack of turkey, some lettuce, tomato, whatever. We're making sandwiches that day. And leaving that call, headed to the funeral home, she asked me, do you think we have enough for lunch? I said, if it's just you and I, yeah, we got plenty. If the other crew wants some, we should have enough. Yeah. If our director wants some, maybe not. You may have to have one sandwich apiece, but we're good. So we're traveling from one community headed to the other one, and we get back. We're going by the station, and she turns on the turn signal and just turns in and stops and backs up into the station. And I looked at her for a second, and she said, "What?" I said, "You were asking me if we had enough for lunch." She said, "Yeah. Don't you think we do?" I said, I think we do if it's just you and I or you and I and the other crew, but you think we got enough for Granny? She had backed in the station with that body in the back of the room. It's just muscle memory. She forgot where she was going and backed in with that body in the back of the truck. You think we got enough for Granny?
I haven't done that, but I've come close before. I don't think I was driving. I probably would have been the passenger, and like when you're the medic or whatever in the passenger seat, and I would just, I guess, zone out and wasn't paying. Anyways, I had totally forgot there was a body in the back. Luckily, my partner remembered. I'm like, why are you going this way? Oh, they're real quiet back there.
Yeah, muscle memory is hard to overcome.
And me and Gary one time got a call in the middle of the night. And so, like, if you've never worked in EMS, this is how it goes. You have like whoever's driving, right? And then you have the passenger, which is usually the medic of the call. And when you like go up to intersections, the driver clears left, the medic clears right.
Once again, why I can't hear out of my right ear.
And so you verbalize it, like pretend like we were at a stop sign. We stop, we both go clear, and then you go. And it was just a reflex. And then one time me and Gary got a call in the middle of the night. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and we finally got back to the station, and he was going to back up, and he had to like nose up in the road, and I was so out of it. He nosed up in the road to back into the station, and I went clear, and he instinctively put his foot on the gas, and we almost ran the ditch.
I can see that happening. I give him credit for that. I totally understand.
It hurts my neck to laugh. We were it's just so funny how it just becomes a reflex. But like he knew he was backing in the station, but as soon as I said clear, that foot hit the gas.
She did this for shenanigans, and this is the one I know she wanted me to tell the most. And this is, after as many years I've done, I have many, many stories, but this is by far the best one. And I actually can't take credit for it. A very, very dear friend of mine came up with this idea. And before we could execute it, he got transferred to a different station that evening because someone had to go home sick or whatever. But Brandon he was a dear friend of mine. And this was his idea. But he and I had already been across the street to the store and bought everything to do it before he left. And it was such a good prank that I could not skip it. He said, just tell me how it turns out. Well, we had an assistant chief, wonderful human being. JJ was awesome. But he usually went to bed before everyone else. So he was usually by 9:30, 10 o'clock, he's gone. Well, 1 a.m., I eased out of my bed, eased over to the other side of the bedroom. There's 9 of us in one room, by the way. The bedroom at AFD was one big room, 9 men sleeping in there. I went to the other side, waited, and made sure he was asleep. And we had taken construction string and tied it to a clip that we would clip our turnout gloves to. So anybody knows what turnout gloves are. They can be kind of heavy. So it's very much an industrial clip. Well, I hooked that clip to that string and was crawling toward JJ's bed. And I would crawl a little bit and I'd stop and listen. I'd crawl a bit farther and I'd stop and listen. And I stopped one time to listen and make sure everything was quiet. And I get, what are you doing? It was Dale right in my ear. And I almost fell down the pole hole. Scared me to death because I thought I was alone in the world at that time. And anyway.
Quit hitting the table.
Anyway, I made it over to JJ's bed and we hooked that industrial clamp to his bedspread.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we got his bedspread and his sheet. So I run it back across the bedroom, run it down the pole hole.
Run it down the fire pole.
Yeah, the pole you slide. We run it down the hole and
hooked it to the bumper.
Skipper hooked it to the bumper of the rescue truck.
Yeah.
Well, once we got everything set up, we had David give Rescue 1 a call. So we get up, we get dressed like we always do, and the rest of the crew stays in the bed. And we go downstairs, and I thought Skipper would drive out on the pad and stop. No. Skipper left. I bet JJ's bedspread and sheet was running 40 miles an hour when it come down through that hole. And all I could think was, oh God, we're in trouble. And then they said JJ woke up, he's laying there in his whitey tighties face down and looking around, and he looks at Jeff and said, where's my covers? And he said, I don't know. The guy I'm talking about is Chief now, by the way. But we went, Skipper went around the block, drug his comforter all the way around the block, and we unhooked it and folded it, and we were going back upstairs 25 minutes later. And we went through the door at the top of the stairs and met JJ face to face. And there we are with his covers. He was upset.
In his underwear?
No, he was fully dressed then. Shoes, belt, pants, and all. I mean, he's fully dressed. And I don't know if he ever did go back to bed, didn't he? That poor man was upset, but I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard.
What about the I can't remember if I saw this somewhere or you told me, did y'all put like saran wrap over a toilet?
Oh yeah, that happened a lot.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, that was a common thing.
And what you also told me one time about when the temperature got below freezing, y'all sprayed somebody's.
No,
you put a water sprinkler.
No. That was actually prior to me going to work, but this is probably the best prank I've ever heard of in my life. A dear friend of mine, Lynn Elliott, did this. It's Bradley Elliott's dad.
He's the one that passed away, right?
Yeah, he had cancer and he died, and we lost him. But he used to, every time it got below freezing, he'd go outside with a cup of hot water and throw it in the air, and it'd turn snow and fall, and everybody thought that was cool. Well, him and another guy were pranking each other, and I really don't remember what the guy did to Lynn, but Lynn went out and put one of those forehead rotating sprinklers in the bed of his truck and turned it on slightly so that it was only had like a 6-foot stream coming out of it. And it run in the bed of that guy's truck all night long at 12 degrees. That guy got up the next day and the ice on top of his truck was like 6 inches thick. They said when he came in the next shift, his truck was still frozen. He had to get his wife to come get him because they couldn't get him in his truck. The ice was like 6 inches thick.
That's funny.
That's one of the best pranks I've ever heard of.
Y'all, like, the only like pranks that ever really happened to me were just the usual stuff. Like, you would drop a patient off at the high school. Oh my God. Wow. You would drop a patient off at the ER and then come back out. Where did Bailey go?
He's out there.
And then you would come back out and start the truck, and your sirens and everything would be on, like, or like the heat would be on full blast or something stupid like that. But I can't think of any. I've been thinking about it all day. I don't know how
we had some
I'm just not remembering.
We had some good ones at AFD. The poor guy that lost his bedclothes that night. Someone, and to this day, I swear I don't know who did it. He still doesn't believe any of us as far as who did it. I have no idea who did it. And I know the person that almost paid the price for it did not do it and was astonished I was. But we're talking about JJ. He's one of those people who's a creature of extreme habit. And he would get into bed, he'd roll over on his stomach, and he'd put his arms under his pillow to go to sleep, which is actually something I do. Well, he crawled into bed and he put his arms under his pillow and his pillow started vibrating. Someone had put about a 14-inch toy, should I say, under there. And the way he run his arms under there, he turned it on. So it's and his whole pillow's vibrating and everything. He reaches under his pillow, grabs that thing, and just like a boomerang across the bedroom. And my buddy that was driving the rescue truck when we did the thing with his bedclothes, he said that thing passed like 3 inches over his face and hit the wall behind his head. And he jumped up and looked, trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, dude, I didn't do that. But he threw it right down. It went right over his head and hit the wall. He didn't do it. I didn't do it. We still don't know who did it, and nobody will admit it, but he was actually quite upset about that one just because of what it was.
How big was it?
It was about
For real?
12, 14 inches long, about as big around as my arm. It was a big one.
I hope that wasn't something that was put to use.
Hopefully not, especially not that night.
Gross.
Even Bailey thought that was funny.
That's funny. There was another one. I won't say who did it, but this is not really a prank. This was just pure meanness about people peeing in the tomatoes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't even tell that.
There was a tomato plant. And
2 of them on each side of the back door leaving the station.
they got regularly peed on to be mean.
I had no part of that, by the way.
No.
None whatsoever, I must say. But anyway.
I actually didn't think we were going to have time to like pivot to the COVID stuff, but unless you can think of anything else, I guess I don't have any good like pranks. I just always like listening to you tell stories, and I thought it might be something they would enjoy too.
Well, I have quite a bit more, but most of those are not appropriate for filming. No.
Well, now I'm intrigued.
And we'll talk about it later. You put me on camera with some of that. No.
Well,
those guys were an adventure.
You talking about the toy made me remember you telling me about like a bunch of house fires, and then y'all would go in the bedroom and there'd be that stuff everywhere.
Oh yeah, that happened all the time. I mean, people are people. They have their lives. Unfortunately, when their life catches on fire, they lose their privacy. And it's not anything we do out of meanness. But I will tell one other funny that it was not a prank, but it is one of the funniest things in the world. If this guy takes offense to it, I will apologize to him. But I had only been with the fire department 18 months, less than 2 years, either way. Well, Engine 1, Engine 5 responded to a house fire together, and we're doing our thing. They had it blacked out. We're doing the search, making sure there's no victims, and I come up on a closed door. It was locked. I couldn't open it, so I shouldered it open. The lieutenant from Station 5 is sitting on the toilet in this burning house with his pants down, doing his thing.
He was taking a big shit.
In the middle of an active house fire. I'm like, I'm surprised you can sit on that seat because that thing's probably warm. But somehow or another, he had gotten out of his turnouts with his air pack on and was doing his thing. And we had a really, really big laugh about that for about 3 years. And then it got weird the second time it happened. I shouldered another door one night, and sure enough, there he sat. And he said, "Would you go away? I'm busy." I was like, "Dude, that's twice." Something about fire made him have to poop. Wonderful human. Oh man, we had so much fun.
Speaking of, there's a funny phrase in EMS, at least amongst us, that I never heard. I don't know if you were the one that, I think it was you I heard it from first, but it never fails. Like anytime you have to go poop, you're going to get a call.
Mhm.
And so there's this phrase, like when somebody's pooping, you run up and you go, pinch it off and wipe it deep. Let's go.
That was actually a captain that made assistant chief at AFD. He's retired military. And that was his thing. For whatever reason, it seemed like you'd catch a rookie in the bathroom every time. And obviously, being military, he was very uncouth. He would key up the intercom in the station, pinch it short, wipe it deep. We got to go. And you got 30 seconds. And if you didn't make it, he would leave you.
Well, I never got left, and I never got caught. I got caught twice in, like, nothing bad, but like one time it was when I was working in Georgia, and this is not funny. This was horrible, but well, it's sort of funny. But we got a call one day for a pediatric cardiac arrest, and I was working weird shifts and I had to have a shower that morning. And so I was in the shower, and which is fine. But where I messed up that day was I decided I needed to wash my hair real quick. And that call came in like with shampoo lathered up in my hair for a pediatric cardiac arrest.
Mhm.
And the towels were like those like bigger hand towels. They weren't like full-size towels.
Face towels.
And I come running out of the shower with like they're not big enough to hide much, but I come running out with like 2 towels, and I'm like yelling at my partner. It was Shayna, if you ever see this, it was your husband. But I come run like screaming to Matt. I was like, tell him to roll it. Tell him to roll. Like I was. So anyways, we ended up going, and it was something that we called. It was a SIDS thing, but I had to sit there with that mother and her deceased child with my hair soaking wet and like awful. So like obviously I never did that again. And then the other time, oh my gosh, this was a pediatric code too. I just realized that. Okay. Puzzle pieces are fitting together. But another time was in the middle of the night. I had been asleep, and I did not know at that time that it's possible for just your thigh to fall asleep. So like from the knee down was awake, but from the knee up was dead, because I guess I was laying flat on my back and my legs were locked, and the tones dropped again in the middle of the night for a pediatric code. And I stand up and just immediately hit the ground because like
I actually remember you telling me this story.
And I twisted my ankle and it was like a scene from a movie, because I was like belly crawling out my bedroom door, like, go on without me.
I'm sure everyone listening to this at some point in their life, you've gone to sleep like this or whatever and woke up with a dead arm. Well, we're humans. It happens to us too. And it's been 2-3 dozen times in my career. Tones drop and I jump up and I'm looking for one of my arms because I can't feel it. And I'm trying to get dressed with one arm and put your shoes on that arm. Like, you're trying to pick it up and like, come on, wake up. We got things to do. But I will tell another funny that wasn't a prank, but I'm actually telling off on myself. But the guy we were talking about, we thumped the firecracker in on, he was working with my partner one day, and he told him, he said, hey, I'll be right back, and left the This guy was at the time not even an EMT basic. He was just a driver. I'll be right back. Stay with her. And he runs outside. And he's standing there thinking, what is he doing? What am I supposed to do? I'm standing here. This lady's just laying here. What am I supposed to do? Well, it turns out that particular person at the time had to run out and check the protocol book because he was a brand new medic and all. And he had to go make sure what it was he was fixing to do. Well, fast forward about 3 years later, me and that driver are working together again. And once again, he's just a driver. This is 7 o'clock in the morning. We're just about to get off. We got woke up for this call and we go out there and I said, hey, I'll be back in a minute. You stay with her. And I took off.
You had poop, didn't you?
I come back and his eyes are this big around. He's like, what are we doing? I saw nothing. I said, her glucose is low. We're just going to give her some sugar and D50 and wake her up. Where did you go? Did you go check? No, I said, dude, I just had to go to the bathroom. He was tore up when I got back and he thought I done left him with a critical patient. No, she's fine. She just needs some D50. I had to go to the bathroom.
I'm about to embarrass Lee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the men watching this or the women who might see this, husbands, I don't know what it is about men because I'm not like this. And I also don't drink coffee, so that must be part of it. But there is something about men when their feet hit the floor, they're on a clock from the time their feet hit the floor till they have to go poop. And that's usually the first thing they do. The men in my life, that has been a thing. And the men that I just talk to and observe, it seems to be the consensus. Y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, but Lee is very much on a clock. He is on doesn't matter where he's at. He is going to have to poop at a certain time, which can be very troublesome in EMS if you are at the fire department, if you get a call at 6, 7 in the morning, because once Lee's feet hit the floor, he's on the clock. He is going to have to poop. I got about
30 minutes. And at Anniston, you had about a 15-minute response time total. At Cleburne, you got about 25-minute response time. And once you arrive, hey, something needs to happen. We got to finish this because it's time to go. And that's just how it is.
Wasn't it a Hardee's you had to stop at one time?
Yes, I actually stopped at a Hardee's on the way to the hospital and left my medic in the back of the truck with a critical patient because I didn't have 3 miles left in me. I just didn't. Well, he was upset when I come back. I was like, hey, man, you would have been a lot more upset if I had not stopped. It'd been a long ride back to the station. So
I worked a code one time after I had peed all over myself.
Yeah, you did.
If the women on here who have had babies know what happens when you throw up. And we ran a call one time and it was just me and my partner, and the volunteer fire department showed up. And I needed an extra set of hands. So I had my partner in the back with me, and we let a volunteer firefighter drive us to the hospital. I never did that again after this call. But this kid
had never driven an emergency vehicle.
He drove that ambulance, I guess, like a fire truck. And it was the worst ride I've had. Like, it was awful, and it made me really car sick. And I made it. I knew I was going to throw up, but I made it till we were pulling in the ramp. And as we were pulling in, I just started throwing up. And when you throw up and you've had babies, you're a woman, you pee on yourself. So then I had to tie a sheet around, and that's what's so, it's funny to talk about now, but there's no plan B, The
part she didn't mention, she has very bad vertigo.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, if you're leaned over and something happens and you slosh to one side or the other, it sets it off.
Yeah,
so it wasn't just him. Yeah. She does have a history of vertigo.
No, but it was bad.
So, yeah, I know. So, but
I was riding on my partner was in the airway seat and I was on the bench. So I was like sitting sideways. So there
Mhm.
was the back of the ambulance and the front of the ambulance. And I remember had a monitor like right here. So I was having to lean over and look at it.
Mm.
And between being sideways and my head over like that and the ride, oh my God, it made me so sick. And I never would like if you had not drove for me before, you weren't doing it.
Yep.
Because that was, and the other ride I've thrown up several times on calls, but the other one was transport to Atlanta. But anyways, I hope that y'all enjoyed those stories. Hey Jesse, I did want to pivot a little bit, and I'm curious because we actually have not talked about this beforehand. I just kind of told him, hey, think of a few funny pranks, but also wanted to pivot a little bit and go back to COVID in EMS. And just we don't have to go into too much detail about that, but there were some things I wanted to say about it, and just that I was so disappointed through COVID with how political COVID became. You look nervous. I'm not going to say anything stupid. Calm down.
No, it's not that. It's just that's a sore subject for me. So, but go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say, what was interesting about my experience with it when we first started hearing about COVID, like in March of 2020, I remember, I think you and I were both like, or at least I remember thinking, this is not going to be a big deal. This is stupid. Like, I thought it was going to be like the common cold. Like, I like really downplayed it. And, there were a lot of other people that were like freaking out about it. And it seemed like somewhere along the way, all of that was swapped because the people that were initially freaking out about COVID ended up being the ones that, in my opinion, were very much misinformed. And I, who brushed it off in the beginning, became very like, oh, because.
And then ended up with it and almost died from it.
Yeah, what y'all don't know, because I've not talked about it on here, I got COVID in September of 2020. Yeah. I got it. And this is a kind of actually a sore subject for me, not how I got it, but what happened after. But I had a patient that we got called to for, I think it was just like weakness or something. And this was when.
Not fever, not COVID,
right.
Weakness.
And we were also like having to conserve supplies. And so at that time, if it was not like suspected COVID, you just wore like a surgical mask.
If it didn't come in as a COVID call.
Right. And then if it was possible COVID or whatever, we'd have the N95 and the whole get up. But it was miserable because I felt like a baked potato in the oven. It was awful. But on this call, it just came in as weakness. And long story short, I had on a surgical mask and we got the patient. We were loading her up and I was leaned over to put a mask on her. And when I did, before I got the mask on, she sneezed right in my face. And I texted, I think you and several people, like my supervisor and my director. I was like, if I'm ever going to get COVID, I just got it. Because after I dropped that patient off, I got a text from the nurse that was
2 hours later.
Yeah, they were just like, hey, just so you know, that patient y'all brought in has COVID. And I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. I'm sure I've got it. I'm going to get it now. And texted my director, supervisor, Lee, said if I'm ever going to get COVID, I just got it. Sure enough, the next shift, about midnight, started running a fever. This is a very long story, and I don't want to. I was very sick. I finally ended up going to the hospital, and I tested negative like 8 times, 9 times. All of my COVID swabs were coming back negative, but I was getting worse and worse and worse. And they finally did a bronchoscopy, took a sample of my lung tissue, and it came back positive for COVID. And they kicked Lee out of the hospital.
After 7 days.
Yeah. So
and then she spent 6 more, 13 days total.
So then they moved me to the COVID unit, and I think this is why they moved me to the COVID unit where I was by myself. I was very sick. And, like I could hear when they would call the code blue for the person down the hall, like, so I'm aware.
You know what your room number is.
Yeah, so. I'm aware that I'm on the COVID unit and like there's other people here and they're not doing so well. And it was really scary. And then like while I'm in the hospital, like all I had to do was play on my phone or whatever. So I'm like looking on Facebook, sitting there in the hospital, can't damn breathe, and just so many people I know that were just the things that they would post on social media. And it was such a sore subject for me. And so, but that was late September, October of 2020. And then my motorcycle wreck was October 2021. But what was the most upsetting about the COVID stuff for me with that was that my case, I never had to go to ICU and I was never on a ventilator, thank goodness. But I was out of work for 3 months because I was so sick. And at that time, my boss was like, hey, try to file workers' comp and see what happens. So I did. And what was so infuriating about it, so like there were other states, I actually listed them when I talked about all this, but a lot of other states had provisions that if you were a first responder or a healthcare worker and you got COVID, it was presumed that you got it at work and you could get workers' comp if you had COVID and you were out of work. Well, not in Alabama. So they denied me. And the infuriating part about it for me was that I knew exactly when I got it. I knew exactly how I got it. And a lawyer called me. And he interrogated me. He asked
berated me. You, yes.
He berated me. He said there was like a window. I don't remember what the incubation period of COVID was. It was like, 2 weeks or something like that? I think it was like,
at first, yeah.
And so he was like, between this date and this date, did you ever go to the grocery store? And I would say, well, I'm sure I did. Did you sanitize your groceries when you got home? Did you ever go into Lowe's? Like oof.
The really infuriating part to me about that was the fact that we had recently lost my stepdad. My mom was living alone 45 miles away, and we were actually doing those things for her. We would go and do her shopping or take her shopping and tell her she's not allowed to let go of the cart. You tell me what you want and I'll get it. We would bag it up. We'd take it home. I left all the bags on the back porch and I took the wipes and I wiped down every article she had and let it dry and then handed them to her to take in the house. But no, we were not doing that at home. But what he was asking if we were doing, yes, we had been doing. We just hadn't been doing it at home. And
It was just like, it was such a slap in the face. Like no, I wrote my congressman, which of course I never heard back. I tried, like, I wanted to pursue it, but I eventually got better and got back to work, and I just kind of gave up with it. But the state of Alabama did not do their due diligence, in my opinion, to protect people, especially healthcare workers who got it on the job. And I'll leave it at that.
all right, well, let me add, when I said that was a sore subject to me, our fire department had a policy that if you didn't have someone that was in legitimate respiratory distress, which is left open for interpretation, but common sense people know what legitimate respiratory distress is. But if your patient was not in legitimate respiratory distress and their complaint was shortness of breath and fever, the fire department always responded with EMS in that environment, but we were there to assist. And as soon as COVID started, we were told if it was not legitimate respiratory distress, you stand on the street until EMS gets there, goes in, assesses, and decides whether or not they need us to help get the patient to the truck. And if they did, then we would dress out in all the garb that was necessary and do it. And we caught a lot of flack about that. There were a lot of people in EMS and the general public, and even some of our people at the fire department had a problem with that. Well, my biggest problem with it now, we did a video recently. I don't know if it was the last one or one before it, but I had a shirt on, a memorial to a very dear friend of mine who was present with me with the greatest, worst day of my life. We did something wonderful. And this person kind of took COVID a little lightly, but we were doing our thing. Well, they got a call for someone having back pain. And they got there and it's just back pain. It's nothing to do with COVID. So he's a paramedic. He walks up in there and we'll see what's going on. And this person has severe upper back pain on inspiration. Lungs sound like garbage, sound like gravel. It's bronchi. Satin in the mid 80s. Load them up, send them to the hospital. 4 days later, my very, very dear friend was diagnosed with COVID. And 5 weeks later, he died.
In the same COVID unit I was in.
Mm-hmm. And so, we were doing what we were told. We were responding to the criteria, and he did, and it killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to say it killed him at 40 years old, 13 days shy of his retirement date. That sucks.
Mm-hmm. There was something I was gonna say about that, and I forgot. But it was weird times. It was very, very weird times, and I still don't think that we're, like, the COVID misinformation is still like, it's, I don't know that we'll ever get it all sorted out, but I was really disappointed in the way that, see, and you had the benefit of working for a fire department with a union. And
no, I had the benefit of working for people that looked out for us. Our chief,
I'm just saying,
our assistant chiefs, our captains,
had my
they
situation,
had our best interest at heart.
Well, it's just, I felt very disposable when I got it at work from a patient.
Yeah, but it wasn't because of the service; it was because of the system.
Right. Yeah, not the
Yes,
service at all.
stress that.
Yeah, the system.
Because our service took good care of you.
Missed work for 3 months, and the state of Alabama says you can't prove that you didn't get it from the lettuce you bought at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we're not going to give you your wages or even a fraction of your wages. And that left a really, really bad taste in my mouth. Yeah.
And I had a lot of problem with that, but when I lost one of my dearest friends, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to let that go.
And well, remember my grandmother died.
I know.
My grandmother died in an assisted living, and she died from it. But I don't remember exactly why I wanted to include COVID with the pranks, but there's Miranda, I don't know if she's on here, but the video I did recently, it was one of my latest videos. Anyways, she commented on it. I can't remember if I told you this or not. And I was like floored when I read the comment, because she asked me, and she lives in Texas, and she asked me about April 27th, 2011. She said April 27th, 2011 was when a very large tornado killed a bunch of people around here. And it was the Tuscaloosa tornado, but it was on the ground so long it came through here as well. And she asked me about if me or you were working that day. And I told her that I was like, I can't believe you asked that question, because everybody always asks, do you have PTSD? Whatever. I don't feel like I have any PTSD from any call I've ever ran except that night. Do I not? If I see a tornado on the TV,
she can see the advertisement for the movie Twister when they're going to replay it, and I can expect her to have a nightmare that night.
Yeah, I have nightmares all night, but I think I'm going to do a video on that, or maybe just do another live podcast, because there's a lot to talk about with that as well. But
that I probably shouldn't even say it, but it goes along with the things that people don't even think about us doing. From the day you start doing this kind of work, you're told any power line that's on the ground, assume it's live. We had the big tornado in Jacksonville, and Aniston went to help, and we're all up in there doing our thing, getting up through the roads, trying to check all these medical calls. And the rescue truck I was in was hung on a wad of power lines.
I didn't know you were out there that night.
Yeah. A wad of power lines come up behind the front tire and got hung on the running board. And we had I can't remember if it was chest pain or respiratory distress, but it was just at the top of the hill. And we're the closest truck, obviously. And I remember I was standing on this power line, holding on to the bottom of the mirror on the rescue truck, bouncing up and down, trying to get it to come loose from the running board so that we could go on up the hill. And 30 minutes later, one of the guys got lit up. It didn't kill him, but he got lit up 2 blocks away.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I don't remember what the deal was, but
I told you what
2
happened
blocks
to me,
away, he
didn't
got
I?
lit up.
I told you what happened to me that night, didn't I? I was in Jacksonville that day, so my ambulance was the closest to where the tornado went through, and so we were out there like I was sitting at the station watching it on the news, and like as soon as it went off the screen on my TV, the calls just started flooding in. But we got to where we were going, and that was my first like major event like that. And so I don't know how it's done normally, but that night for us, we got a call. I remember it Peak Drive. I don't remember the house numbers. I just know it was Peak Drive. And we were trying to get to a specific person, but of course you couldn't get anywhere because all the roads were blocked and there were no lights. And we had to turn around. So I was in the passenger side. So I stepped out to help the driver turn around and I stepped right on the power line. Luckily, it was so bad that there was no power. But yeah, had that wire had any power to it, I would have been toast. That really freaked me out. That was not a good feeling. But there's a lot more to talk about on that night for another conversation. But I am currently editing the pre-recorded podcast with my friend Kaylee. I had to take a break for a few days because I had like 4 full days invested in that video editing and then decided I didn't like it. I didn't like the format, and so I decided to change it. So now I'm kind of back at square one. And yeah. So until I get back on that, we might do another live podcast next week. If you guys like this, I don't think the live feeds show up like on anybody's homepage, so they don't get as many views, which is fine. But I just like to do these live things when I don't have a video to put out that week, just so you guys know that we're still here and we're still working. I've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes. For Christmas, I'm asking Santa for 2 new lavalier microphones so that we can do a group podcast. We're trying to get the right people together for that. So lots of things going on, and we've got family coming in tomorrow for Thanksgiving.
Can't wait.
So I hope you guys are going to have awesome Thanksgiving festivities. I know we're going to have, last year was when Diane cooks. Last year was my favorite Thanksgiving meal ever. So I'm really looking forward to that this year.
I'm just looking forward to having my people here. Yeah. I really am. Oh, man.
And Bailey was good. Give it up for Bailey.
Jackass.
All right. I will read the comments when I get off here. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we really appreciate your feedback. I appreciate all my members, and I hope y'all have a great weekend and happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you before then.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.